Hi, so what I wanted to talk about today is something that came to me with a conversation I had with one of the people I'm helping with astrology, and that is the rawness that is Pluto. Now, there's a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot of, but there has been claims about Pluto this, Pluto that, and all that stuff. But I wanted to go deeper, having a deeper dive into Pluto in terms of how it affects us today and what it means to make that as a part of your whole, right? So, for those who have read the story Pluto, specifically Hades, is that he manipulated, technically, he sought out Persephone, or Proserpina is the Roman equivalent, and basically took her away from Demeter, or Ceres is the Roman equivalent. So he's tied to the story of the ups and downs and the cycles of life. And that's Pluto. Pluto goes through cycles as well. Pluto goes through, he's basically like everything that you see that is things that we don't want to face. He's tied to everything that's Plutinos, the trans-Neptunian objects, all the stuff that he's the lord of the area, let's call it. He's the lord of the underworld for a reason. And that underworld is represented by all the planets which don't want to rise to yet, even keyword yet, because we're here to learn all that processes. He is tied to the generational transition, generational transformation, or rather regeneration of all of us. But because what is regeneration in the first place? That word is tied directly to generation, right? So that means it's slow, it's per generation. Um, but I mean, I'm saying all this stuff with the astrological stuff behind it. But the point is that with Pluto going into that's still in Aquarius today, in astrology, we look at its traditional rulers, the rulers, traditional and modern rulers of Aquarius, because it's in Aquarius right now. So what happens is we tie that in and what that means. Um, Without looking too much into the other planets that's the aspect right now to it, we look at more at it from the perspective of through the slower planets. So Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto, because they're all linked together right now. Specifically because it's through Aquarius. So what does that mean? Like, I mean, from what people are experiencing right now, it is exactly what's happening right now. Um, and I noticed this change in people, and I don't know if people are realizing this right now, but there's so much to be said about the whole thing, just astrologically on its own. So, for example, Pluto often represents it's a big it's the one that represents power. But what is power? If you think about power, um, we think of power as just like having control, right? But power is something that is intrinsic. It is intrinsicness itself, the ability to create something out of something that we perceived as unwanted, negative, disgusting. So before we claim something that is like, oh, well, I like Pluto, da da da, because it makes me stronger, but does it? Yes, but you have to go through that disempoweredness first. That is the story exactly of Persephone. When she was taken and she was raped, um, this is what makes a difference between the Greek and the Roman mythologies. The Greek ones are more real. I'm not saying this to diss Roman mythology. I'm just saying that the representation of Hades is strongly is represented through the astrological interpretation of Pluto. Um, He's a lord of decay. He's a lord of all this stuff that is unwanted. He represents the entry into the shadow realm, the parts of us that we disown, deny, um, reject, you name it. Okay, invalidate all that stuff. Um, and Pluto represent because of all that stuff that's under decay. we don't want to face it because we're too afraid that it will hurt, because we're so used to comfort. As mammalians, we're comfortable, right? We like to be comfortable. We like consistency and all that stuff. But this is where Aquarius comes in, where because Pluto, anything that Pluto touches is tied to everything that is to bring to the surface that is unreal, that bring corruption to the surface. That's why it rules viruses, bacteria, fungi. It's the mycelial network. It also rules decay as part of that whole process. But it also rules the cycles of going up and down into growth and then back to degrowth and then regrowth and then growth, right? So because Pluto is in the outskirts of the solar system, there are more out there, but Pluto introduces us to what we refuse to do, where we, because it's too complex. Pluto teaches us to deal with complexes on our own. And this is why people are feeling like they're alone, they have no help and all that stuff, especially after, during the pandemic. That's what struck the whole thing. I mean, people are experiencing this. It's even more heightened now that Saturn is in Aries and Uranus is in Gemini. Now, before that even happened, Saturn was in Pisces and Uranus was in Taurus. So, all that inner stuff, inner processing, right? So, bringing the truth out of ourselves from what we've denied ourselves to do, to be what we have been shocked to see as that we can actually simplify things, that we can build from something, right? So when that happens, or when when that was happening, it was telling us to be like, okay, well, I don't, I feel like I don't want to do the fake stuff anymore, and that's true. People don't want to relate with each other. That's in Taurus, right? So Uranus is breaking that apart, and Taurus Saturn is the one that's re-solidifying everything. It's almost like breaking apart, re-solidify, breaking apart, re-solidify. So this is exactly, there's a pulse happening. So this pulse that's happening is actually still visible today. Just the people upstairs alone that I live with, they're in this sort of like nervous system thing. It's residual. But I think they're learning as well, and I'm learning about myself, right? So this is why if you notice the weather patterns, you know how it's like right now where I am, it's warm, but it's not warm. You see that? And it's really interesting. It's just like, and so that's affecting the nervous system. That's affecting that whole like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And this is what this whole thing with Aquarius is, right? Aquarius is unknown, the uncharted territory, really. With Saturn being there, it's there's a desire and pull towards, and this is just also for the age of Aquarius itself too. So we're talking like next 2,000 years, but it's going to get better and better and better. We will work more in tandem with our nervous systems, right? And that's just being a little bit general. Um, with Saturn there, it signifies that do we want to go back into fears or do we learn from the lessons of the fears? Do we learn from the lessons of um, structurizing, and it's just all that again, the calcification, it's that thing, it's also karmic. So but do we go to karmic stuff, do we go back to karmic behaviors, karmic things like recycles itself into victimization, because that's exactly what Kronos did. Kronos is Saturn. In the Greek mythology, he ate his children because he was afraid of being dethroned. He was afraid of having lost power. He was afraid of what was beyond the potential. He was afraid of what was here. So he kept himself. He kept restricting things. He's about limits. He's about fears. He's about time as well. But what Saturn teaches us is that give it time and you can inch your way towards change. Give it time and you can inch your way towards change. This is where Uranus comes in. In fact, there's something in between there. These are the centaurs. The centaurs all tend to represent transition, specifically Chiron. Chiron is a transitionary centaur between Saturn and Uranus. So what Chiron does is he's not only about transition, but he's all about integration, right? So when we're talking about integration, I mean we're talking like we cannot deny systems. We cannot deny that a system is there, but we can repurpose it towards something better. When I say something better, it's individual. This is where the uniqueness of Uranus comes in, where it's like, yes, it's collective, yes, it's group, yes, it's tribal. We're in it together now, but it's also focusing on the self as well. How do I improve myself? So in tandem, they're together. You cannot live without the other. You can't do that. It doesn't make sense. Integration is one of the ultimate functions of this universe. Integration is shadow. This is ties exactly to the gateways of Hades, that to introduce ourselves to our shadow. So when I look at something simple, like for example, the way people behave today, the way we all behave, I'm not going to exclude myself from that whole process, but that when how we take care of things and Saturn rules matter and material things, right? So when we look at the things that we have, if you've ever wondered, like, what's how come things are just falling apart and all that stuff? Well, this is where Uranus comes in and shakes that apart and it breaks. But what does that mean? Does it naturally just break because it breaks? No, it's bringing consciousness and awareness to and revolutionizing what was complacent. So we're shifting from complacency to coherency, if that's a word, but complacency to coherency, meaning being more in touch with higher vibrational energies. We call it high vibrational energies, but what it is, it's just being more in the present, being more in the present. This is part of the integrational process because when we bring awareness to something, it no longer has an effect on us because we see that's like, oh, that's a story we're playing. We've heard this. Many of us have heard this already, right? But it's like when you bring something into awareness, it's like, okay, wait a second. Let's bring it to perspective. There's a clogged toilet here, for example. And I'm thinking, why is it clogged? Well, maybe because the people upstairs are dumping mop cleaning water down the toilet, which may cause it. But again, do I know that? Is that even a fact? No. And at the same time, that's one awareness. The other awareness would be, did I even ask them? Third awareness would be, well, think about it, it is toilet. It's a toilet. There's always a solution around it. There's always a way around something. You work with what you have. And that's the realistic approach to that. That's the awareness behind it. It's a mixing of the thought and the earth, which is interesting because Uranus and Saturn rule. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius, so is Saturn. But Saturn is the main ruler of Saturn of Capricorn. Both it's earth and air. Totally makes sense, right? So do you see what I mean? So it's bringing logic and practicality to the surface and saying, even though we have all these feelings, it's okay. Let's dig deep. That's Pluto. So what I'm saying here is that when it comes to what I'm going to add here, rather, sorry, is that when it comes to like clogged toilets, like it was frustrating at first, but then I was like, okay, bring it to perspective that it is just a toilet. Here's the other thing too. On the other hand, what what kind of how do we approach custodianship? I made a video about this in my TikTok video, my TikTok account, where it's just like we've forgotten how to be stewards and custodians of our own consciousness. In other words, our awareness. We just kind of like let it go. We kind of just like whatever, right? And it's like because we've gone through so much trauma that it's almost like no one was there for us, so we kind of just fuck it, right? So we're just like, okay, so right. So you see what I mean? So, but actually, it's not. It's a strengthening of behavior. It's a strengthening of awareness and consciousness. This is what Pluto is bringing towards the surface. This is exactly why I have this background here. Thank you to the artist, by the way. That when it explodes, the reason it explodes in the first place is because there's been tension bubbling, like, percolating the bottom. It's like it wants to explode. This is Pluto. When we don't face our inner demons, when we don't face our shadow, it explodes. This is my personal lesson from what I've done before, where I used to explode a lot. And it just, so what I learned was to find my own inner power. When I say inner power, I don't mean like power. I mean an inner understanding of instincts that I should listen to, like if I'm being called to something, meaning if I'm feeling it, just like this isn't right, or I don't want this, that I do something about it. As a higher octave and a higher vibrational octave of Mars, which is action, Pluto has taught me to that take that action where it's necessary so that it doesn't explode. You see what I mean? So Gaia is going through the same thing. The reason it's explode volcanoes are erupting is because it's, Gaia is a representational energy and an embodiment of what we treat it to be, right? So if we were in one with nature and we were in cohesion with nature itself, most likely there wouldn't be such explosive eruptions of volcanoes. It probably still will, but it's more like just like, oh, oof. It's like a kind of thing, right? Instead of like, and say, not, intense. So Pluto also rules intensity. It's about genuineness because genuineness wants to come out, right? When we hit the magma underneath the layer, the crust, beneath the crust, you have the mantle. It rubs against the crust beneath it. But when we're hiding the fact that it's like there's not there, there's nothing rubbing beneath us. There's nothing, oh, there's nothing wrong. I'm fine and stuff. I'm watching actually this video with Mayim Bialik and just what's this, a psychologist. And we're going to talk about how we have basically uh, micromanaged everything, micromanage information that doesn't even help us, let alone only rely on information and diagnoses without actually finding the root cause of things where it's not even new. So it's like in denial. Such a residue, it's such a residual effect of what we've gone through in the last 2,000 years, which is labeled the age of Pisces. Again, it's not to blame. It's not about the astrology. It's not to blame, but oh, because of the age of Pisces. We have to watch our wording as well. That's the other part of awareness as well, right? So it's this whole thing that we're going through right now. So when it comes to like, let's say stewardship and custodianship, which I mentioned in the video in my TikTok account, um, we're being called to get into this mode of like um, re-awareness. If that makes sense. Again, custodianship, being more aware and like being present with what is care, first of all. Like, why do we care about something? Is it because we just have to? Like, is it because someone just told us to? Was it just a regurgitation, a mental regurgitation, a physical regurgitation, a psychological regurgitation, an energetic spiritual regurgitation, all that stuff? Is it all just regurgitation? You know? Right? So that's what's happening. So again, regurgitation, vomiting, that's tied to Pluto, like the explosion, right? Blah, because it no longer can take it. It's almost like we're feeding ourselves epic hack unintentionally, and we're doing it unconsciously, or we've done it unconsciously. We are going towards this direction where we are saying, well, let's not epic hack ourselves. Okay. Um, so like when it comes to like specific things, like when we're actually in presence with consciousness itself, we have an appreciation. We actually appreciate what we have. This is what we have. There's an actual reverence and respect for something that is already in its own level of consciousness. Like we often treat things and tools and shoes, the clothes we wear, the carpet beneath at the floor, the air we breathe, the bed we lie on, it's like everything is like a tool. We think that it's like, okay, it's a tool, so therefore it means nothing. But actually, when we do that, it's neglect. It rots. It destroys itself, which actually ties in with not only Pluto but also the Saturn and Uranus placement of it's going back and forth between if we have too much Saturn, if we have too much solidity, too much stability, there's bound to be an explosion and it's going to crack open. That's Uranus, unexpected. This is exactly what we're going through, and it's manifesting through the things we have. But that's where we have to listen and say, okay, why is this happening? Because the manifestation of our own subconscious behavior. Subconscious is also part of the Plutonian effects. Let's call it Plutonian effect. It's not really effect of Pluto, maybe, but more about our own choices that we make. Are we present with the things we have? But to be present has a lot to do with bringing our attention to the body, bringing our attention to the present moment, and then bringing our attention to what is now, here and now. Not because it's time, which ties in with Saturn, but yes, and there's is time as well. But it's also allowing itself to unfold, the present moment to unfold itself. Not because we're waiting or not because we're rushing anything. It's neither grabbing the tree, the apple from the tree, picking it prematurely before it's even ripened, or it's neither that nor letting it fall just like that. You pick it at the right time, and that comes with the connection from within. This is also Pluto as connection within. The timing will come when it's the right time, when we just learn to listen. And this is in silence. Also, this is very Pluto, right? So if you meet anyone with a Pluto sun, even Pluto moon in their chart, you'll notice there's something about them. There's this intensity about them. They wait, they're very observant, right? Anywhere that Pluto touches is very intense. Then the reason for that intensity is because it's a focus in the moment. It's a focus in that one. So this is the gift of Pluto, to be present with, well, pretty much the darkness, the stillness. People think the darkness is something to be scared of because it's like, I don't know, because unknown. Go through that. This is the Saturn stuff. You have to go through that, face it, because otherwise it will crack, it will explode, or it will spew out and be volcanic eruption in your face. Right? So this is what we're learning. Whether I say it from, whether it's me saying it or from personal experience, we will know. And that's really what learning is. Right? So anyways, so this is all that stuff that's happening right now. So we have to be stewards of our own consciousness. We have to be custodians of our own consciousness. And this is where we have to, it's not an imposition on my end. I'm not trying to impose anything. It's really about just like we have a choice to make. But the choices doesn't have to be one or the other. It's actually an integrated process, which is where Chiron comes in. It's integration, shadow. Things that we resist persist. Right? So are we too complacent? Are we too fearful? We create karma, that's Saturn. Or do we just embrace complete change and we go crazy with AI, for example? Or we just abuse it and we just think, da, 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 it's all hyperactive, right? Just break, 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 break. And next thing you know, it's like, well, where are you going to land? If you try to get rid of gravity, you're just going to be up in the air. That's more uncertainty. That's a havoc on this nervous system because it's like, you can't deny ourselves that. We can't resist the third dimension, its form. We don't have to succumb to it. We don't have to follow what it is. This is exactly what the planets are saying. This is exactly what the placements are telling us right now. Integration. Humble yourselves. This is what Chiron had to learn. He learned he was immortal. He was wounded, but he couldn't heal himself. So what did he do? He used that wounding as wonder. He used the pain to purpose. This is exactly what integration is. Shadow. So you can do different types of shadow work. Look up Teal Swan stuff. There's a book that I started with in shadow work back in 2010, similar time when I started astrology, by the way. It's called The Dark Side of Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. Lovely book. It's gotten me to where I am today with shadow work and being present with any sort of wounding, any emotions, what I resist. And it's got me to become more, yeah, present. It's not critical. It's not even critical thinking. It's not more thinking. It's just trusting the inner self. So I hope that totally makes sense that you get basically the main part of all this stuff, right? So this is what I'm learning about, what I've been learning about, and I continuously continue to learn that it's not as intense as before because now I'm just like, oh, okay, in its own time. But then I also do my part. So that's what it is. So Okay, well, I think that's it for now. Thank you for watching again. I'll see you guys later. Happy Pluto, and see you guys. Bye.